Goeiedag, good day, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world.
I've been looking around for salvation. I've been looking around for the truth. All around me I see frustration, and I looked all over till I found you. I sit and listen to your stories, and you're telling me, please don't worry. Lot in this world you should know, and love in life is where you should go. If you're looking for somewhere to go, if you're looking for someone to know, if you're looking for someone to guide you, the loving light will guide you. I know that life is so hard.
Goeienaand, good evening, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world, and welcome to tonight's live stream. And tonight I'm, of course, talking to Daniel Janse van Rensburg. But before we just go into that, I should mention to you that this is probably the last night we're going to be using this temporary YouTube channel, because we should be out of the naughty box by tomorrow. If I've got my days wrong, we might have another night here on this supplementary channel, but as I say, hopefully tomorrow night we'll be back on the other YouTube channel. Alrighty, now I'm going to get our guest on, Daniel Janse van Rensburg. Can you imagine being stuck in what is commonly known as one of the worst prisons in the world, called Black Beach? And that's where Daniel spent some of his life, and not a good place to be. And he's written a book about it, and there's a link below this video where you can actually find out more about his book. You can also order it on Amazon. I'm going to get Daniel on so we can get the show on the road. Here we go. Hi, Daniel.
Ah, hello.
Good to see you again.
Likewise.
Yeah. Now, Daniel, we're going to be talking about your your pretty rough time you're in a prison in Equatorial Guinea. Now, just to kick off this discussion, tell me a bit about yourself and how you landed up in Equatorial Guinea in the first place, because that to me has always been a bit of a backwater, hasn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't know the place existed until I went there, actually, because it's such a small country. The island, it's got a small piece on the mainland, and then it's got a little island which is just south of Nigeria, and the island is only 30 kilometers by 80, and most of the island is actually a dormant volcano. And how I got there is I was working in Angola on a contract, and I just finished the contract when a friend had asked me if I wanted to start a satellite television company in Equatorial Guinea. very much like Sky and so on. We've got in South Africa, we've got DSTV, and being also sports fanatics and so on. A lot of the oil crew always wanted to watch sports and so on, and that was the only channel that showed these sports and so on. So I agreed to it, and I flew all the way to Equatorial Guinea, and that's how I discovered the country.
Okay, and how did you land up from going out there to develop a online television station to being incarcerated? What happened?
Yeah, no, well, because of being the only English speaking satellite station there and on the island and so on, I very quickly got to know most of the English speaking people, and most of the influential people wanted this television satellite service as well, because of it showing all the European soccer and so on, which they love as well. And then one of them just asked me if I had any contacts with aviation, because they urgently needed an aircraft. And I'd always had a love for aircraft. My father was a pilot, and so I said, yes, I've got a lot of friends and so on, I could organize something like that. And I organized an aircraft for them, and that's how my aviation story started.
Okay, well, tell us about that.
We've it's called ACMI, Aircraft Maintenance and Insurance. That is how, I source an aircraft either from Europe or the US or from South Africa with crew, and they fly over there, and then they do a contract. The contracts are normally between 6 months and 12 and to a year, and we just, because most of these countries don't have their own aircraft, so they're reliant upon foreign countries bringing in aircraft with crew and providing them with normal airline services.
Okay, but having an aircraft to be incarcerated, I still don't get why you were incarcerated.
Yeah, I worked on a very big contract with the gentleman called Angabi. He used to be the mayor of Malabo, which was the capital city, which is the capital city of Equatorial Guinea, and he wanted me to start an airline for him. And we'd failed previously because they don't stick to the contract and they don't follow the rules. And after 9/11. Everything changed. Even the airlines in Africa had to change. Beforehand, it was, basically free for all. If you could fit in a roof carrier, they would have used the roof carrier as well. There was no limit to what they could do with aircrafts in Africa.
Yeah.
And that's why they loved the Russian aircraft as well, because you could really abuse them. And this all changed with 9/11. All these new rules came in and so on, and most of the African countries were blacklisted as a result of that. So that blacklisted means they couldn't fly internationally.
Right.
And so he asked me if he wanted to start a new airline, but he wanted to have it flying internationally and so on. So we worked for over 2 years to get the authorization done. It's a lot of paperwork, really. I mean, you're talking about probably about 16 files, of paperwork. And it has to be paperwork. They still believe in bureaucracy over there. You can't have everything on a memory stick. Everything fits on I think it was about 1.5 gigabytes of information, if I remember correctly. But you have to have everything printed in triplicate. And we did that for 2 years. We got all the authorizations. And I was actually here in South Africa when we got the authorization and so on, and I phoned and he said I must come up immediately so that we can start it. And I just packed an overnight bag because I told my wife I'll be back in 4 or 5 days. I'm just going up there to sign the second part of the contract, to get the second part of the payment and so on, and so that we can get the plane off and running. And I came back 2 years later on, because when I got back to Malabo, I had to wait for about 2 weeks before I could actually get to see him. And when I got to see him, he just said he wanted to cancel the contract. And, I knew that we had a very good contract. It was translated into Spanish. They speak, it's a Spanish ex-Spanish colony. So the official language there is Spanish. And I had it translated into Spanish. And so everything was approved there. And maybe in hindsight, I shouldn't have argued with him. But I really felt that, I was in the right. And then he just decided, no, he is having me arrested. And he called the special police, and they came rushing to the house. We were at his house. And I was taken to the police station and charged with, I think the first thing that he arrested me for was for fraud. He said the aircraft didn't exist. And that was very difficult for him to prove and so on. And the judge immediately let me go free. And then about a week later on, he had me arrested again. And this time it was for theft. And again, the judge just laughed at it and so on, because I had all the documentation. I had everything to prove that everything, my things are all 100% and so on. But the second time things changed, because he threatened to have me killed. And I didn't really believe it at that time, because I actually know his family very well. I know his children very well. I would even go as far as saying that we were friends before this incident. And I got a phone call from another friend telling me, listen, that he sent some vehicles to go and pick you up to have you killed. And I managed to run probably about 3 kilometers or so on through the downtown city of Malibu to get to the South African embassy and seek refuge. And that's when all the problems started.
So did you get to the South African embassy?
I did, and they tried to help me and so on, and they approached the government, and the government said, officially that everything was fine. I could leave the country. There was no problem with me and so on. And a couple of days later on, the embassy took me to the airport, and I checked in, no problem, passport signed, everything. I went to the waiting room. The aircraft arrived. We were called to board the plane. We started boarding the plane, and the Sangabe guy arrived there and started shouting and swearing and so on at me, and I just ignored him. And the policeman came looking at what was wrong, and he explained to him that I was a thief and that I was escaping the country. And the policeman looked at my passport. He looked at all my documentation and said, there's nothing wrong here, told me I can leave. And then the Sangabe spoke to him in his own language, their own dialect and so on, that I don't understand. I can speak Spanish. And suddenly he just changed his mind and said, no, I've got to come with him. And they took me to the airport police station, where the South African embassy were actually still very close, and I managed to get a quick call through to them before they took my phone away to tell them that I've been arrested again. And when the embassy staff arrived there, he actually grabbed them and threatened them and told them to leave this alone. He's got nothing to do there. And then he turned to me and said that I was going to die in this country. And the special police arrived, and they took me up to the same judge that had set me free. And from there I was kept in a holding cell for about a half a day or so, until they actually escorted me off to Black Beach.
Wow. Now I've been doing a bit of research, and Black Beach is noted for, or has notoriety for being one of the worst prisons on earth.
Yeah, well, I can't probably. I think most prisons are probably terrible places. I can't imagine anybody saying a prison is a nice place. I can't compare it to anything else. But if you watch movies and all these series on prisons and so on, there's a lot of different things that you can watch and so on. what makes this one different to most that I've seen is that it's actually just one big cage. We called it a zoo because there's women and children in there. There's children 11 years old in there. There's drug addicts in there. There's people that are mentally ill, politicians. There are policemen, military. Everybody's thrown in one jail. There's not such a thing that, separate one for women, separate one for children, and so on, like it's supposed to be. And once you're inside, it's only 2 or 3 cells that are actually locked up. Those are the political prisoners that have got serious problems with the president. The rest, it's free for all. You've got to survive. It's virtually open season. If you're not strong enough to survive there, you get preyed upon.
Wow. And when you say everybody's in the same place, does that mean that there's just one cell with hundreds of people in this one big room?
No. This is actually quite a modernish building. If I remember, I think it was constructed in 2012, 2013, somewhere. Sorry, that's when I was put there. It was constructed in 2009. That's right, about 3 or 4 years before I got there. So it was relatively new. It's got large cells. It's a double story. It's got large cells at the bottom, which are made for 6 people, and then it's got upstairs. It's got the solitary cells for 1 person. Now, it was designed for around, I have to guess, probably about 80 or 90 people. We were counted once. We were close to 500 people inside there.
Wow! So it had over 5 times the number of people it's recommended to hold.
Yeah. It's very rarely can you actually stretch out your arms and not touch somebody. You're virtually lying against somebody or sitting against somebody or nearly on top of somebody.
Wow. So, take us through a day at Black Beach.
Yeah, the days are actually the nice part of Black Beach because they open the door and then you can go outside onto they've got a little concrete square that you can walk up and down and so on for the whole day. They open up the jail as such at around 7 in the morning, and they close it around 6 o'clock the evening. So for the most of the day you can actually stay outside and get some fresh air, and even some sunshine and so on. So that's where we spent most of our days. It's a very, you're not allowed any books, you're not allowed any, most of the time even pens were not allowed. Sometimes you'd be able to get a radio or something that's half working and so on and pick up something, but they always steal anything that's worthwhile stealing. So most of the time you're just walking up and down in your own thoughts and trying to pray, trying to spend time with God in your head. And I actually forced myself to change the way I think, to try and to think positively, to try and get some positive energy into my thoughts and so on, because to survive a night there you have to be really mentally strong. And I realized I was allowed to have a Bible. Strangely, that was one thing they didn't have a problem with. You can have the Bible, but they don't want any other books in there. And so I was able to read my Bible and pray and so on. But I realized, that you've got to live out your faith. You've got to actually live it. And I forced myself to go outside and get positive, speak to people. And then one day it was raining really hard and so on, and I was nearly alone in the middle of the square walking up and down and so on, and I could see a little bit of a mountain on the outside. It's got a little bit of green grass and so on, and I imagined it to be a green, and I teed up and I hit this golf ball, beautiful. Obviously it was a perfect shot, and I started playing golf in my head, just standing in the same spot, hitting balls and so on. And that way I influence myself, mentally to when I go inside to try and be positive, because it's when they close the doors at night for 12 hours. You have no guards inside. You've got no hope. Anything that happens inside there, there are people that are actually stabbed or beaten or even ill, just dying of malaria and so on. You've got to wait until the next morning, until it's opened up. Then you're either carried out in sheets and dumped, or somebody will come have a look at you and decide if they're going to do something with you. The nights were the worst, because when I wrote my book, they put the exact amount of days on the cover and so on. And I kept on telling them that, I'm not comfortable with that, because to me, just to survive one night in Black Beach was just a miracle on its own, because you can't really sleep, because if you fall asleep, they go through your pockets and try and steal whatever there is from you, or if you're unlucky, you get even raped. So it was you sleep with one eye open if you can do something like that. You actually, and so at nights you try and find a place against the wall, to try and stay away, so you can sort of protect yourself from something that comes from the front and so on. You try and I immediately, when I got into prison, I was approached by a group of Christians and so on, and when they found out I'm also a Christian and so on, they also helped me and so on. So they actually told me to sleep where the condemned men are. And that is a really strange thing to think. The guy next to me, sleeping next to me, chopped up his wife into little pieces and fed it to his children.
Oh no!
And the guy on the other side, he'd killed, I think, 3 or 4 people that had been sleeping with his wife. And these guys are waiting to be killed. They're just waiting. They were actually about 2 months off while I was there. They were called up and they were actually, don't know what the right wording is, or the nice wording. Executed. Yeah, they were shot. Yeah, and but. It's the safest place in prison. That's what they told me, is because they're not scared of dying, and everybody's scared of actually, the gangs leave them alone because they've got no fear. It's just, they know they're going to be executed sooner or later. There's no fear there. So in a strange way, I was quite safe sleeping between them.
Wow. And what sort of things do you witness in the prison at night? I mean, you must have seen some shocking things.
Yeah, I think two of the worst parts that happened is we were, one of our normal days outside, we saw them bringing this young lady in. She was a bank teller, and in West Africa, they've got this beautiful black skin. It's like nearly shiny. It's beautiful, really beautiful. And, she was really, when I saw her, I felt so sorry for her, because she wasn't a street lady. She wasn't, one of the normal women that are actually arrested there that, I don't say they deserve to be there, but, they can survive something like that. But this is a sweet, innocent girl. And she was just a bank teller. That happened to have the wrong boyfriend, and they were looking for the boyfriend, and she wouldn't give him up, and she didn't know actually where he was, and they thought that if she was put into Black Beach, she would talk, and we knew that night there was going to be a problem, and you can't interfere with they just shoved her into one of those rooms and closed the door, and they raped her right through the night. You could hear her screaming, and then eventually stopped screaming. And that was one of my worst nights there, because harm children or women, something that really gets to me, and that was something that probably will haunt me for the rest of my life.
Wow. And I take it while you were there, people were murdered with knives and things like that?
Yeah, it's unfortunately they manage, they don't have a problem with letting alcohol come into prison, and so they start drinking, and once they start drinking, it becomes a free-for-all fight sometimes, and there's real carnage because there's a lot of scores to be settled. There's a lot of unhappiness. People are frustrated. It's very hot and humid there. So all these things add up. So when there's a good scrap going, everybody climbs in there, and knives are banned there, but you do see them every now and then. But what they actually do is they sharpen spoons, and spoons are allowed. But they sharpen the spoons, and they cut each other with spoons. And even worse than that, this normal soda can. I saw the one guy. He just bit a chunk out of the soda can, and he used both sides to cut people with.
Oh, wow.
It's if you want to be brutal, it's amazing. Anything works.
And what was the worst experience you had while you were in Black Beach, personally?
I think personally is definitely the bank teller that was raped. I think that was definitely one of the worst parts and so on. I've still got parts that I can't remember. That are just
you've scrubbed from your mind.
Yeah. It's the head doctors tell me that it's just the normal way that the brain protects you. That it's too bad things that have happened and so on. But with the normal riots that you have inside the prison, the brutality, it's not something that you can actually, I don't think I'll ever be able to erase that out of my mind. It's just something that is stuck in your mind and so on. And the few times that it happened there and so on, and they do it to their own brothers. I'm not talking. I'm talking real kin. Two brothers. They went into each other and virtually murdered the one, killed his brother. Other times, they would beat children. Which is very bad. That's also something that really gets to me. And you can't protect them because they make sure that you don't interfere. But the worst part, I think that comes to mind now is I was taken to be tortured, and I was taken to this. They've got, probably call it a dungeon. It's just a room actually, and they hang the people up on a pole with handcuffs on their hands, and to the ankles, and you actually hung up there like a I don't know, like when you go hunting, you put up a deer there, or to carry it on a pole and so on. Now you hung up like that, and then they beat you with the normal, the rubber batons that the police have got and so on. But they keep on beating you until you don't move anymore, and then they continue beating you still even more. And it's a real bloodbath inside that room, because obviously you're just bleeding everywhere and so on. And then they loosen you, and then you get dragged out, and then the next person gets taken in. And I was third in line when we arrived here. And if you listen to the sounds, it's the sounds of that happening. I think that is something that I'll never forget that. And then the guy in front of me, he was actually also a foreigner. He was from Mali. Long black chap, also beautiful black skin and so on. And the fear in his eyes, and he'd wet himself and so on. And he would try to, they really struggled to push him into there. Now, they, in front of us, they carry the other guy out. When you can, it's just a trail of blood all over the place, and they carry him in, he's screaming and shouting and so on, and then they start beating him. And it was also one of the miracles that happened there in prison is that I was waiting and I was praying and I was telling God, okay, if this is something that I've got to go through, I need some strength here because, I'm terrified, I'm really terrified, I think I can take quite a punch, but, this looks like it's not very nice, and, and the beating just stopped, and then suddenly this guy walked into the room and so on, and he approached me, and he spoke to me in perfect English, and he said, like, don't worry, we're not going to touch you. I'll confess you just now. And now, you're in this strange place and so on, and you're thinking, okay, this is playing mind games. I've seen this movie before. I'm not falling for this one. And so I'm still waiting, and I'm praying and so on, and eventually they open the door and they carry this guy out and so on, and they look at me and so on, and the guy walked in, back in again, and he took my handcuffs off and he told me to follow him. And now outside they also beat you, in the square.
This is the prison guards.
Yeah. Well, they don't have prison guards there. They've got it's military and police. It's difficult to say which one is on duty. Sometimes it was military guys that were guarding us. Other times it was just normal policemen. They don't have a prison guard as such. And it's fun for them. They really love doing these things. They enjoy beating. It's there's no pity in them, and so I thought, okay, I'm a white guy, they probably want to beat me in front of everybody and so on, and watch them, so that everybody can enjoy it and so on.
Right. And
when I got outside into the square, I was just taken back to the jail, and by the grace of God, I wasn't touched.
Wow. Now, tell me about the food. What the food? I guess is pretty shit, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think there are better words for that than that. I mean, it's that would have been probably good. I think it's strange how the body is, because the worst part of that I can remember is not being able to drink clean water. Because the hunger. I was without food, but sometimes 3 or 4 days without food.
Wow.
And your body, it's strange. Your body actually, learns to adapt to it. It bothers you in the beginning. You get your cramps and so on, but then your body is okay with it. It's like, it's okay. Let's just drink something. But if you can't drink something, that really, then your body starts shutting down, and you can really feel it in your body that you're not sweating anymore. You can feel your body doesn't want to function and so on. And I was drinking this dirty brown water, and I remember just looking at it and saying, God, I can't get in other water here. I've got to, please, just protect me. And I drank it. And the food. About the third or fourth day I was there, I was really hungry. And now I'm, also, you're getting, we've got a saying, yes, in South Africa, you're hungry, you're angry and hungry, and I was really, because you get frustrated as well, and you're dirty, you can't wash yourself, and so I thought, okay, I'm going to go stand in line and see what they're getting for food here and so on, and so I'm standing in line, and the strange thing about this prison is that everybody thinks that they would have a problem with a white person, only one white person in a predominantly black jail. And what was strange here is that there was only actually one guy that was a racist, that hated me because I was white. The rest of the people just saw me as a prisoner, as a poor bastard, at the wrong place. But for me, and this guy was really evil as well. I mean, he abused the young boys. He kept on beating on weak people and so on. And he never really tried to take me on, because he realized that you have to really fight. I think as long as you show that you're not scared or show that you're not weak, you're pretty much left alone, because there's enough people that are weak that they can prey upon. So now I'm standing in line, and he calls me out and he says, "White man, come here." So I said, "No, leave me alone." He says, "White man, come here." So I said, "Leave me alone." And he says, "White man, come here." So now I'm really angry and so on. So okay. So I go to him and he says, "You can't eat the food." So I said, "But I'm hungry." So he says, and he's speaking now English to me. He says, "You don't eat the food." So I said, "But I'm hungry." So he says, "Come with me." So now I'm thinking, okay, now he wants to take me on inside the jail, because a lot of the fighting is done inside the jail, because outside the guards actually enjoy it and so on, and it makes it actually more people participate on the outside. Actually, inside you can have personal fights, and strange thing. So we go inside, and he gave me actually from his own food, and I was very grateful for that. The food there, the warden's got a budget that he's given in cash that he has to buy food for the prison. Now, obviously, whatever he saves from this cash, he puts in his own pocket, because there's no auditing of the funds and so on.
Yeah.
So he buys stale bread from the bakeries, or I don't, probably gets it for free, because the bakeries probably throw out that bread. We always have dry bread that's probably 2 or 3 days old, and he buys expired meat from the oil companies. So when they have surplus meat that is expired, they throw it out, and he goes and gets that for free. And the chicken, to give you an idea, I once looked at a piece of chicken that they were taking out there. It is yellow-green.
Oh, no.
And I mean, I can't even tell you the smell. The smell is something. It's really putrid. It is terrible. And so inside the prison, you're allowed to cook for yourself. They've got these little fuel canisters that they have there and so on, and they cook this up there and so on, and they boil this chicken 2 or 3 times, and then they fry it in oil, and it's like crackling. It's just dry, but it's actually quite nice. That green ugly piece, you actually eat it and you enjoy it. That was probably the best meal that I had there, something like that. We eat about 3 times a week, I would say, on average, and most of the time, you try and get some bananas in there or something like that, fruit, or you hope and pray that somebody comes to visit and brings some food from the outside that you can eat, for the next day or 2 before somebody steals most of it. So that's about the food.
Now, your wife was in South Africa. Was she able to help anyway by getting money to someone to get you food and stuff like that?
No, I was, it was really, I was really in a bad position, because they really wanted to punish me. I wasn't allowed to do any phone calls. Even the South African embassy were not allowed to visit me. I was just disappeared in this black hole. And everything, all the letters that I wrote and I gave to people to take out and so on, were confiscated and so on. So I had no communication with the outside world from inside until, I was forced to start thinking of, different ways. And I made friends with the drug gangs and so on. And they managed to smuggle some messages out for me and so on. And I had a Muslim friend inside that had a little shop business inside and so on, and his brother would bring him his goods every Sunday and so on, that he'd sell for the rest of the week and so on. And so I managed to get a message to the South African embassy, so that my mother would send money to the South African embassy. This Muslim guy would go to the embassy, collect the money, and I would have credit inside in jail and be able to get some food and so on.
Wow, so you did actually get some money eventually.
Yeah, I just had to go around the way, but it took me, I think it was my second year in prison only that I managed to get, pick up some wisdom to survive.
How long were you in prison for?
I think it's just, I was at some stage I was I was let out of, I I went in and I was let out again, and then I was put in for a year and a half. So in total, I was gone for 2 years there.
Now, who is this guy who basically got the police to imprison you? I mean, you say he was a mayor, a very wealthy man. What's his background?
He's married to the president's sister, and so his nephew, who's at the moment the vice president of Equatorial Guinea, and he's hoping to be the next president when his father dies, and he phoned him, and he was in charge of the prisons, and that is how we found out that that because he doesn't have any power as such. He's wealthy and so on, but he doesn't have any say over things like that, over the police and so on.
Yeah.
And he could never do anything to me. But we found out that Tudorin had actually, done all this on his behalf.
Wow. So it was just relentless for 2 years. I mean, being stuck in Black Beach.
Yeah, no, it was really, it was, I think it was really terrible, even worse for my family, because they would get news,
Yeah.
I mean, to this day still, my wife still doesn't like answering a telephone call because she is expecting bad news. It's just one of those things. She ignores the telephone call just because of it.
You must both be suffering from PTSD. I mean, especially you. I mean, what you went through would have been horrific.
Yeah, no, I try and stay physically fit as much as possible to do a lot of mountain biking and so on to clear the head and so on. And try and do a whole lot of different things to stay positive and so on. But it does catch up every now and then and so on. I think my family have pretty much healed as much as possibly you can and so on. They've arrested now 2 other South Africans in Equatorial Guinea. And, that brought a whole lot of bad memories again to my family. They all, relived the whole episode again.
Yeah. Now, Tokolosh has just written on the side here, please ask the guest to explain his beef with the mayor. Now, that was because you were going to open up an airline for him, and he suddenly reneged on the contract, and then you tried to take him on, and that kind of where things went pear-shaped.
Yeah, he wanted to cancel the contract, and he wanted 2 years of money that he'd spent. He wanted back immediately. In short, obviously, I declined it, and I refused to do it. And I told him he owes me money if he wants to cancel it according to the contract. So we ended up in front of a judge, and the judge just told his attorney he must read the contract, and he threw it out. He accused me of something, again, of theft and so on. And again, the judge threw it out. And this time the judge actually warned him about it and so on, and said he was just wasting time. They must stick to the contract.
Now, just on your imprisonment, were you before a judge who said you had to be imprisoned, or were you just taken to prison?
We were just taken to prison. It was the same judge that told me I could go back to South Africa, that I had no problem whatsoever, and signed documentation, everything and so on. He sent me to Black Beach.
Wow, so obviously someone had got to him.
Yeah, no, he actually, at a function a couple of months later on, he met with the South African ambassador there in Malibu, and he apologized, and he said he is sorry, he was told to do that.
Wow. Now, you refer to God, the Bible, praying. I take it was your faith in God that actually saved you. I mean, without that faith, you would have been a dead man walking, wouldn't you?
Oh, definitely. I mean, but by the grace of God, I didn't lose one drop of blood, and I was taken to be beaten a few times. Every time something stepped in and changed it. All the fighting in the jail, all the riots, the shooting, everything, it's just, they arrested me twice at the airport. everything, yeah, I'm sitting back home, so I've got a lot to be grateful for.
Now, were some of those prisoners in there for years and years and years?
Yes, I've got actually a very good friend that is free now. He was there for, I think, just over 20 years, 23 years or something.
Wow.
Yeah.
So he must have told you a few stories about life at Black Beach.
Yeah, he actually helped build it, and he painted it and everything while he was there. So yeah, it was very, very interesting.
Wow. So I guess the bottom line is, don't land up in a prison in Africa, anywhere in Africa, whether it's South Africa or Equatorial. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that goes for anywhere in the world. I think the prisons in Sweden or somewhere, or is it up where somewhere in the northern of Europe? They're fantastic, but I don't think any other prison is any good.
Here in Australia, they're not too bad. But okay, so you're stuck inside a prison all this time. The courts obviously had no interest in letting you out. So how did you get out? What happened?
Yeah, no, we'd really exhausted everything. As a business consultant, your worth is actually in your contacts. And I was always proud, and I'm still proud of all the people that I know across Africa, even in South Africa, all over the world. I've got very good contacts, very good friends, in all the right places and so on, and nobody could help me, nothing. It was incredible that the South African government never did anything to help me either. The embassy staff were fantastic. They smuggled food to me. The embassy staff, actually, because they weren't allowed to visit me, so the consul actually was friends with the consul of Venezuela, and he went to visit somebody else in prison, and so he sent food that way to me. We tried everything. My parents and my wife, they tried everything and nothing worked. And probably about 6 months before I was set free, another white Spanish guy was imprisoned. He was a real criminal, because he'd been in prison twice before. He makes fake passports and visas and so on, and even money. And he didn't want to pay a bribe, so they put him in prison. Now he was really rich, So in prison, if you've got money, you've got protection. You can get food, alcohol. There you can even get girls, So he was pretty much organized in prison for the first month, and then his girlfriend on the outside stole all his money, and his lawyer disappeared, and he was stuck being a prisoner just like me and everybody else, with no friends on the outside. And from a real overweight alcoholic, he became very skinny and depressed. And I kept on asking him to walk with me in the square, to get some sun, because there were some Nigerian friends of mine there. They kept on saying that, I've got to get more in the sun to blend in with them, because I stick out too much. And so I was working on my tan during the sun hours and so on. And I kept on telling him, come walk with me, come walk with me. Eventually, he started walking with me and so on. And then he started talking. And I managed to, influence him positively, started talking about nice things and so on. And he read the Bible, and he said he didn't understand it. Then he went and read the Quran, and he said that doesn't, he didn't understand the Quran at all. And he said he doesn't understand us. And eventually he figured out a way how he could get out of prison, and he was set free. And he actually came back a couple of days later on, and he bought me a whole lot of food, and even managed to get money into me. And he offered that he use his lawyer to help me. And I declined. I said, no, God will take care of me, and, I've got my family, I want to do this right. You know, I don't want to cut any loopholes here. You know, I don't want to have all this suffering and then I, you know, do something illegal and so on, because I knew he'd probably want to do something illegal. And so he left it, and he came back a couple of days later on, and he was really worried, and he said, listen, I've got some bad news for you. You know, I don't exist. So, you know, my Spanish is good, but he comes from the Barcelona side of Spain, and they speak a different sort of a dialect and, you know, higher standard of Spanish. And I didn't understand what he said. So I said, what do you mean I don't exist? So he says, well, everybody in this prison is in the book, and they have to, you know, keep obviously record of the people and so on, and I'm not in the book. So I said, but, you know, that's because, you know, this is not a legal thing that they're doing to me. So he says, no, it's got nothing to do with that. It means that they're going to kill you, and they're going to deny that you were in prison.
Wow.
And so, you know, now he had my attention. So I said, okay, you know, what do we do now? So he says, well, listen, you know, I just have to pay his attorney his fee, and he's got to pay for paperwork to get the judge to sign it. And he's spoken to the judge, and the judge has looked at me and he said, there is no case against me. He can set me free. This is a new judge now. And so, you know, we organized it. Now I've had no communication with my family for 6 months. I haven't spoken to anybody for 6 months, and now he organizes that I can make a phone call quickly to get him some money. And it wasn't a lot of money. It's 200,000 rand. I don't know what's that in Australian money, but
about,
you know, it's
$15,000.
Yeah, you know, which is not a lot of money in terms of, you know, that you have to pay for the attorney and paperwork and so on. And so he was transferred that money, but, you know, I call my wife and I say, listen, don't cry, don't get emotional, I'm okay, don't worry about it, have you got money? Yeah, then I had to find my mother quickly, and same thing, you know, says, there's no time for crying, I've only got 15 minutes to organize money, you know, otherwise I'm stuck here again. So they said, no, okay, you know, they'll make a plan. And I phoned 15 minutes later on again, and my brother-in-law and the rest of my family quickly put some money together and so on. And yeah, about a week later on, I was set free. But then the problem started again, because now I'm at the South African embassy. They're all happy and opening up champagne and hugging me and kissing me and so on. And they say, well, you know, where's my documentation? So I said, I don't have any documentation. So they said, but how did you get free? So I said, well, they just said I could go. So they said, oh boy, you know, okay, here we have another problem. So now they went to the Chief Justice, and he was also new, and he investigated for 2 weeks, and then he also officially said that I could leave the country with no problems.
Wow. So that money that your family got together, was that to pay a bribe, or was that to pay legal expenses?
I think it's mentioned as a bribe in the book, and a lot of people refer to it as a bribe. But you know, if you tell somebody there that you paid that amount of money, they would say, you know, that's not a bribe. You know, that's just a gift. You know, it's not money. You know, the bribes. You know, you're talking about, you know, way more money than that. You know, this is the normal attorney fees. They are quite high. You know, because it's like that. And legal documentation you have to buy, and then also you have to pay the judge to do his work. You know, it's strange. And you know, the whole bureaucracy there is still, they use stamps. You've got to buy stamps to make it legal. They have to be stamped by a certain department, and then they're all taken to the judge to sign. You know, there's a whole legal procedure, and every step of the way, you know, somebody wants money.
So you got out because of this Spanish guy who had some money.
Yes.
He actually did all the legwork, and otherwise you'd probably still be there, would you?
Oh, I definitely think so, because there was nothing else worked. You know, the embassy couldn't get anywhere. There was just nothing was working. You know, I was just stuck there waiting.
Wow. So when did you actually get out of Guinea?
Maybe 2015, somewhere in September. September 2015.
So this happened about 7 years ago then?
That's correct, yes.
Wow. Now, seeing that when you were just about to leave and this wealthy man came along with some police in tow and had you arrested as you were boarding a plane, when you went to that airport again and, you were waiting for your plane, you must have had a whole lot of stuff going through your head right then.
No, it happened again, actually.
What? It happened again?
Yeah, it was deja vu, it was, yeah, no, it sounds funny now, sitting where I am now, but the embassy took me there, everybody was happy, also, the same thing, and, then just before the plane arrived and so on, and just before boarding and so on, I was hugging and kissing everybody and so on, okay, and then we were surrounded by the special police or so on. They were in suits, but they were armed and so on, and they just approached us and said, listen, you've got to come with us. And the head of security from the South African embassy was with me, and so it's only the two of us now, and we were upstairs, and we've got to go downstairs, but you've got to walk past the front entrance to get to the police station. And while we're walking, I looked out the window and I saw the South African embassy car was there from the ambassador. She was busy somewhere else at the airport, but I saw the car standing there and the door was open because they were waiting for her. And I told the security in the South African language, Afrikaans, I told them, listen, I'm not doing this again. I'm gonna run for it. This is not going to end well for me this time. And so I said, well, I'm with you. And we walked. Now, by the grace of God, there were a lot of people at the entrance. So the security guys were very relaxed. They were really, they weren't even close to us, because they just thought that, we were just going like lambs to the slaughter,
Yeah.
And nobody really, pushes things there with the police because they just shoot, they don't have any pity, and they're not worried about bystanders or anything. They just shoot. Any chance they get, they just shoot. So, and when we got to the door, I just grabbed the guy and I ran, and we were inside the car and the driver was still looking back, and I was telling him, just go, 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 go. And he rushed out the airport and he doesn't know what's happening. I just said, embassy, as fast as you can go. But he says, but what about the ambassador? So I said, don't worry, nobody's going to harm her. Just go. And he rushed to the embassy and so on, and we were just inside the embassy and closed the gates and so on, and these two trucks appeared there and they were banging on the door and wanting to open and so on.
Wow.
And the consul actually phoned South Africa to tell them that the South African embassy was under attack.
Wow.
And then we found the ambassador. We got a hold of her on the telephone, and then she phoned the diplomatic corps of Equatorial Guinea and told them that, if there's one person coming into the embassy, that it'll be an act of war against South Africa. Then they immediately stopped, and it caused a massive international thing, and there was a lot of phoning and everything back and forth and so on. And the next morning, the ambassador was called and they apologized. And this time I was taken to the airport, and the ambassador went with me all the way. And she actually spoke to my mother and said, don't worry, she's going to walk with me and put my seatbelt on the plane and close the door before she leaves me. And so the third time I managed to get away.
Wow. So you've just been taken to the airport by the ambassador, and the plane is now leaving the tarmac in the airport, or it's taking off. What went through your head at that moment in time?
It was still surreal. I mean, it's. I don't think actually I believed that I was safe or that I was okay until I actually arrived here in George in South Africa the following day, and I heard my wife and daughter screaming from inside the building and so on, and it was that was, I think, the first time that I actually started feeling okay. I'm okay. I'm back home.
Wow, that's extraordinary. Now, okay, you get home. You've been stuck in this. It's really the shithole place of Africa when you consider what they did to you. You get home. Now you've got to recover. You must have been an absolute basket case when you got home. I mean, you must have really been. Your wife must have gone through a torrid time, and then how did you heal? What happened? Was it just your faith in God, or was there? Did you get help? I mean, what happened when you got home?
Yeah, I think obviously, the first thing that everybody wants you to do is to go see the head doctors, and the first thing they want to do is give you a whole lot of drugs and so on. And that's not something that I do. I don't like taking tablets or anything like that and so on. So I did. I went for counselling, with our pastor, and I just focused on staying physically fit and trying. I make my own food. I love cooking and so on. So managed to get some good food into me, and spend quality time with people that you love. We've got our church here has got an incredible community. Even the people living in the village here as well. We've got a good friendship with a lot of people, and just kept on focusing on positive stuff, and the healing comes from itself then.
Wow. And that's over the last 7 years you've been basically healing from what you went through.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I've just got to say your wife is an extraordinary woman, because, you must have been a real nut job when you first came back home. I mean, seriously, because of what you went through. And I just find it extraordinary because on Thursday I'm talking to Dr. Peter Hammond, who spent, I think it was a couple of months in a Zambian prison. And he was talking about the conditions there, how terrible they were, and things that happened in that prison. That's an extraordinary story, and you've put it all into a book called Black Peach. Now, where can people get that book? I've actually got your website address below this video in the description. It's called Daniel.Africa, so if people want to go and see, they can find out more about your story. But they can also get it on Amazon as well, can't they?
Yes, Amazon, Kindle, Google has got it as well. So all over where you get your books, normally you'll find it.
Right. Okay. Now, I can see a book launch behind you. That was done in Namibia last year, was it?
Yes, yeah. A friend of mine actually made that poster for me.
Wow. Mate, look, I don't know what to say. I admire you. I admire your faith in God, because I think without that faith, you would have been a dead man in that prison.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's I think just by the grace of God that I'm sitting here today, and I can witness and say, what happened to me and so on, and the people that helped me inside as well. I had cerebral malaria inside. Now I don't know if you know cerebral malaria. That's the extreme case of malaria.
Yeah.
And
in the brain.
And it's actually, if you get it in a first world country, you still end up in ICU, and it's still touch and go if you actually survive it in the ICU. And when I got it inside in prison, I didn't have even a headache tablet. I had absolutely nothing whatsoever, and I remember lying on the ground and getting cold and shivering, because you get the heat, extreme heat, and then you start shivering, and then you get ice on your lips. You freeze. You can't breathe anymore. You can feel your lungs freezing, and then somebody would lie on top of me and just try and keep me warm, and somebody would bring me some water, and I remember passing out, and then somebody waking me up and giving me a tablet to help with the fever. I don't know who it was. Till today, I've got no idea who did that. And, a couple of days later, and I woke up and I was still alive, and, God still had a plan with me.
Wow. Well, I mean, you've got such a testimony to tell. It's amazing.
No, a lot to be grateful for. Yeah, wow. I mean, the wife, I'm blessed with a fantastic wife.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. And look, is there a message you'd like to give to people in wrapping up this live stream? And I guess one of them is don't go to Equatorial Guinea.
It's a beautiful country, fantastic people there. I mean, there are really good people there. It's like any other country in the world. You've got some bad people, and bad things happen in most countries. Yeah. So I would never talk bad about the country. But I think the main thing is that you can always change the way that you think. We a lot of times you're conditioned to think negatively. You look at the news, you look at all the things happening around you. We just survived 2 years of crazy COVID measures and so on, and lockdowns and so on. And if you're watching all those news things and is this real or not and so on, you can really just focus on positive stuff. And I've learned to do that every single day. Start every day from fresh. Start focusing. Even if you don't believe in God, even if you're struggling with faith and so on, but you've got to change the way that you think at things and try and stay positive. Because once you appreciate things around you, little things. I looked at little small things like a little bird flying. In this concrete walls and barbed wire and so on. I see a little bird flying, and I'd look and admire it, and I'd say, thank God, what a beautiful bird and so on. And just that little bit of positive things that I could get in, it made me different. And I realized that when I got home now as well, I'd wake up my wife at night and I say, look how the beautiful stars outside. She says, I'm sleeping. So I said, but look how beautiful it is. You got to appreciate this, things like that. So I'm maybe over the top with appreciating things and so on, but I think that, we're not thankful for enough for that, everything around us, and especially the people around you, because now I appreciate family and friends 100 times more than I did before. You don't have them around for long. So while they're around, appreciate them. And thank you very much for the opportunity.
No, you're very welcome. I just want to say in wrapping this up that one of the things that I do just about every morning, because I get up at 4 o'clock, or 2:30 in the morning, but we have our live streams at 4 o'clock. But by about 6, around, with summer and spring and autumn, when I go to the kitchen and I look through the window, I can see the sunrise. And it's the most beautiful thing, because the sky goes this golden color. And I often think that, one of the things that people miss out on when they sleep in is the sunrise, because it is when you look at the sunrise, that there's a God. I mean, there's no other way it can be explained. It is just so beautiful.
Oh yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And then, it's strange. Once you start seeing one thing, then you start seeing everything else. If you start your morning like that, you can't, you see everything else differently. Your day is effective positively, and it just changes everything.
Yeah. Alrighty. Thank you so much, Daniel, and hopefully you'll get some orders for your book through the people who are watching and those who will watch this later. But look, take care, and
thank you very much.
God bless.
Yeah, same there. God bless. Bye.
Okay, bye for now. Okay, guys, that was Daniel Janse van Rensburg, and oh my gosh, what a story. And if you do want to get his book, you can go to the website linked below this video, or you can, of course, go to Amazon and look up Black Beach and order it there. Have a great evening, and don't forget, tomorrow night, I've got a very, very special guest joining me. That's Dr. Michael Cassidy. And he had a huge influence on me as a schoolboy at Michael House. And it's going to be the first time I've ever spoken to him. And I just remember this man so well. All right, guys, take care. Have a great evening. And I think the appropriate theme song to go out with tonight is Op ons Rots, which is a beautiful, beautiful song. Here we go, by Anton Thomas. And thank you to the moderators for looking after the side chat.
Onze pantanat op gouden warm zand, zo waar dat ik wil heen, zo bijna het brand. Ik sta op mijn rots, met golven wat bots, ons heeft geen